Hi, thanks everybody for listening. My name is Josh,
My name's Alec.
and we are the creators of the Freedom of Speech podcast. So, to kind of get started, what we wanted to do with it, I personally think there's an attack on freedom of speech, and not enough people, especially people our age, are vocalizing their opposition to that. I think people are just kind of okay with everything being taken away and their rights for just comfort. And I think that's wrong. I think people need to share their opinions, and I think that there's a need for people like us to put our opinions out there to let other people know that they're not alone in thinking that their rights are being taken away. So
I'm Alec again. Kind of on the same page as Josh. We've been good friends for multiple years, and it's always been something that we always talk about, whether it's at a Del Taco or just at someone's room. And so the attack on freedom of speech is definitely real, especially here in the U.S. as we kind of get a little bit deeper into President Trump's presidency, and you kind of see more and more things like this popping up. And so we just kind of wanted to talk about it. We're not really taking any particular side or any position other than we think and agree that freedom of speech is a right that everybody has, whether other people agree with it or not. And so we're going to kind of touch on several different topics and just kind of give our opinions and our thoughts and insights on different events. So we're excited to get started, and it'll be really good.
yeah, so to kind of get started, I thought I would explain just to give a basis of what we think freedom of speech is. Because, it's easy to say, First Amendment, freedom of speech, right? But what does that actually entail? At least to us, right? Because they put it vaguely for a reason. So it's kind of going into that. Yeah. So I think, personally, the United States is the best country in the world for one simple reason. And it's the rights that are given to us as people under God, as they said, or, just for being human, for being alive. There's plenty of other countries where you could probably make more money, where the weather is better, or, whatever, the food's better, whatever you like. But there's something about the spirit of the United States and the freedoms that we have that is too attractive to let go of. And I think people need to be proud of that, and people need to be aware that that's something that's amazing. And I think people are giving it up, and it's really sad to see. So, kind of going into the freedom of speech, I know that there's been, especially old school civilizations, as you'll call them, have always had kind of something with it. So, like ancient Rome, ancient Greece, they kind of like played on the idea a little bit, where they started giving the average person a right to say something, because they realized that the collective and the value of each person is important. Now, I wouldn't say it was perfectly balanced and fair at all, but it was something. So I don't think freedom of speech is a alien concept. So,
well, I would agree, because obviously I don't know of anybody. I know of very few people, at least, that don't like to have their opinions heard, or be able to express those opinions. So I definitely agree, and I agree with what you're saying, especially in your more ancient civilizations, where the obviously, like, ancient Greece and things like that is a really prime example of the common man having a say, or at least being able to attend and listen to the ideas that are being thrown around that were important at the time. And especially in today's world, where we have access to the internet and just all this information and forums, you have things like Reddit and 4chan, and even like YouTube comments. You'll see a lot of different opinions. And so I think it's just so incredibly important now, especially this attack that we're seeing on it in the age that we currently live in, where we have unlimited access to basically anything we want to learn or talk about. So I just don't think people truly understand just how great of a time we live in right now with access to that information. So the fact that there's an attack on muting that out and wanting to filter what people are saying, or just censorship of any kind. I'm personally against censorship for almost 90% of things, and this is definitely a form of that. Whether it's to prevent people from feeling offended or feeling hurt or anything like that. So it's just kind of scary to me to kind of see this attack, and it's not in secret anymore. It's not something that is being passed in the middle of the night. There's a very clear and loud voice from all sides that don't want one side or the other to be able to say something that they don't like. And so to me that's huge, and especially that now in today's world that's like accepted, like that's an okay idea to have, and people aren't like, whoa, like that's really weird, like why would you think that? So but yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think
I think the biggest attack I've seen on a regular basis is on the internet, so on forums. And even though that's not dictating policy per se, but it definitely leaches out. Like I've kind of noticed that the entire internet presence of news media, which everything's on Twitter now. So, if it comes from Twitter, it's viewed as the same as reading the newspaper back in the day. I think the focus of it is honestly, like you said, like forums like Reddit and 4chan where anonymity is just given to you. I've seen it on both sides, and it's very hypocritical. So people on the left will want to shut down people on the right's ideas by claiming, hate speech, racism, bigotry, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, whatever they can throw to basically to discredit your points, not with facts and logic, but to discredit it because of who you are, sometimes even just physically, how you were born or your religious identity. And that's scary. That's wrong. I mean, I would, and you actually are seeing it on the right too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's emerging, and it's really terrifying. So they will discredit by saying, "Oh, you're not as educated enough," or they'll use their hypocritical weaponry against them, which, it's fighting dirty. So basically they say they threw the first punch. This is the right speaking. The left threw the first punch. I'll throw a punch back, and it's like you don't need to fight their battle the way that they are. You don't need to attack their character, attack their facts, attack their logic, attack everything that can be attacked. And I wouldn't even say attack because that's super aggressive. It should just be debate.
Well, and it's like, I mean, you see it, look at this last presidential election. I mean, we weren't even talking about policy. We were talking about, oh, look at this guy. He's a slob. Oh, look at her. She's ugly. She's a pig.
Little hands.
Yeah, little hands. Things like that. Like, it was like watching 5-year-olds fight. Like, it was so ridiculous. And the fact that that's become, like, the norm in our political, like, spectrum is unreal to me. It's like, it's just so crazy. So, but yeah, no, it's all crazy.
I noticed a rise of it, but maybe this is also because this was the age that I was starting to be more aware of the outside world. But it was, 2009, 2010 is when I started to see this rise. So you started to see people attacking each other for their core beliefs and their core ideals. And then physical traits. And I think that one of the biggest catalysts for that, honestly, was the gay marriage legalization. I noticed that after that was just mandated, that there was a huge uproar on both sides. So that was kind of the call to battle for both sides to attack each other. And it's sad because the United States, I mean, we're a large country with 300 million people, and people come from all walks of life. You have people that are living in San Francisco making however freaking much money they're making over there in Silicon Valley. Then you have people in Kansas, or where I grew up, people in Indiana. They're just farming. They're just working. And every opinion is important because this is an entire nation. We're all together. We're all one tribe. And I think the beauty with the way this country was intended to be set up was we were kind of like our own little EU. Like each state was its own nation, and it had its own tax laws, its own unique laws, and then they interacted together to protect themselves as the union. And I think that the biggest problem is as you're stripping away those states' rights and those individual rights, you're applying the same blanket coat of laws to everybody. Well, that's going to make somebody mad because the laws that are applicable, let's say in Texas, right, are not going to be the same laws that can be applied in New York City. It's a different demographic. It's different people. We need as much local stuff as we can. So I think that's where this attack is they're the people, I guess, that are attacking us. I think they just want to centralize the power. And I think that's why we're seeing this. We're seeing attack on both sides because they want to make you not think of the individual, but they want you to basically think of the collective and move it all on their side. I don't know. It's frustrating to see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, anyone who knows me definitely knows I'm very pro states' rights, regardless of whether you think gay marriage is right or not, or whether you're pro-gun or not. I personally don't care. And I think, kind of taking it back to like the legalization of gay marriage under the Obama administration, when he, just wholesale legalized it, it was kind of crazy to me, because it was just like, wow, like it wasn't even the law itself. It wasn't the fact that it was gay marriage. It was just the fact that he just overstepped everybody and legalized it. And obviously you have states like Texas or like Tennessee where the demographics there, are not necessarily pro-gay marriage. And for me, I don't think it should ever be up to the federal government to dictate to your bottommost, civilian that, hey, you it's legal now and you have to do this, or regardless of whether that's, gay marriage, or like if they were to say like, oh, hey, we're no longer doing background checks for guns, things like that. Like that's scary to think that they can just go in and do that. Whereas I believe, with, kind of the whole idea of the states being, like you said, like its own independent nation, like where we are here in Utah, it's like, yeah, where it's a very heavy gun community. There's a lot of people that carry here. There's a very active gun culture, and and a very active Christian culture. Yeah, so. Exactly. The predominant religion out here being LDS or Mormon. And so it's like you have, as time goes on, I think you're starting to see a heavier concentration of like more of your left-leaning liberals showing up in the in the Salt Lake area, and even down in like the Utah County area. And what kind of I've always thought it was funny where it's like these people that come here, and a lot of the times, especially right now, we're seeing a big migration of people from California. Moving out of state, moving here to Utah, because Utah's economy right now is just crazy booming. And so there's a lot of job opportunities opening up out here, so we have a lot of people from out of state. And I just think it's funny just to kind of see the differences in their views and what they think of Utah. And so I think that's what the beauty of having those states' rights. It's like, okay, you're pro, you're pro gay marriage, you're pro, this or that, like let's say you're pro towards everything kind of left leaning on that spectrum. It's like, great, well, California would be a great state for you, because California is very liberal, their policies are very liberal, whereas here in Utah we're very right leaning. We got a lot of guns, we got a lot of Christianity, there's a lot of just right wing ideology that's here. And so to come into a state and want to completely change it, I think is a bit ridiculous, and making states conform to certain things that are either left-leaning or right-leaning is absolutely unconstitutional, for one. But and kind of taking it back to the idea of freedom of speech, it's like if California decides, hey, you know what, if like, for example, like with the whole UK situation where hate speech is now illegal, if California decided to do something like that, great. If that's what the people want, do it. Then you have every right to do that. But don't try to, federalize that law and force everyone in the states to do it, because the culture between state to state, everything is so different state to state. It's like you said, it's like a micronation. It's just completely different. Every state is so unique and has its own culture, has its own heritage, and people are very, very passionate about it, which is good, I think, because it creates a love and a care for your local community. And you should, we should always be, as U.S. citizens, we should always be striving to make our local communities better, because at the end of the day, that's where we live, and that's where laws that are getting passed are going to hit home. And so, we're going to have to face that. But Yeah, no, I agree. It's I mean, yeah, it's just so different state to state. So the federalization of things and ideas is very scary to me. So,
And I think a good example of how that could be played out in the way that we like it and the states' rights is marijuana legalization. I think that's one of the most interesting things to look at, because I would say that, especially amongst our demographic, most people are just pro legalization, just recreationally, just treating it like alcohol, so to speak. So it's like you have to be an adult, let's say 21, and it can be legal, but it's not legal everywhere. It's legal in certain states, in certain pockets, and I like it that way. Because then if people want legal marijuana, right, and they want to recreationally use it, they can go to Colorado. It's right next door, and they can move there. I actually know people that did that. So I witnessed firsthand the effect of state legislation, or the fact here, right, we can just get guns. It's easy. We can get handguns, rifles, shotguns, whatever we want. And it's not hard to get. You just can't be a criminal, and then you just have to go through the federal process. But it's easy because Utah has a culture of arming itself. I mean, it's a cowboy state. And so, but you go to California, good luck. You're really going to walk around open carry with a handgun in LA? It's not going to happen. Well, you could, and you're witnessing people that do it, but it's not legal. So I like seeing the states' rights being exercised. So that was what really concerned me, and what I thought was an infringement on freedom of speech is you had states like Texas and Tennessee that were like, we do not want gay marriage. Now, personally, I get it, and I would vote pro for gay marriage for various reasons, but you can't take away the state's right to vote on something. I mean, that's terrible to do that. And so that's why I think it was a huge infringement on freedom of speech. It's like the voices of the people of Texas were not heard.
Just muted out.
Right. Because the federal government, the majority, wanted it. But it's like, if you look at the population map of the United States, it's clearly a bias towards large cities because they can fit more people. But you're telling me that those people have more of a say than the farmers in the central communities that just don't want it. It's like you said, it's culture based, and I think it's frustrating. And like what you talked about earlier with the UK, that is so terrifying because I don't think we're that far away from it. I mean, people, and I think it's in Canada too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's illegal in Canada to say hate speech. Hate speech being defined as racist speech. So if you don't like a certain race, calling them a derogatory name or whatever it is you're going to use, that is terrifying because I'm a firm believer in just allowing consequences to happen. If you have a guy who's homophobic and he's screaming at every gay person he sees, goes to where gay people live, like let's say he goes to San Francisco and screams at every gay person and he gets punched in the face, what did you expect? You're in their community, you're in their town. And so when you make that illegal, you make that a criminal offense. So you're telling me that it is because crime is because it's dangerous, right? Like a danger to society, right? So that's why they have to separate you, put you in jail, put you in prison, because you're not allowed to mingle with the average person. You're telling me that me speaking, being a racist, is that dangerous? I don't think it is. I think what it is we're seeing a culture, especially with the internet, people can't take blows. Yeah. They can't take blows. And it's super sad to see because it just makes these weak-willed people. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like as a white guy, I'm not getting that much stuff thrown at me for my race specifically, other than the fact of being called a racist. Yeah. But no one has derogatory things to say about whites for being white, other than you're being in the crowd that is racist. And to me, it's like, that's ridiculous. Like, you don't even know me. Yeah. You have no clue. Like, and it's funny because it's like when you and I pointed out a couple of years ago. I was like, if people knew the kind of crap that we said to each other interpersonally, people would think we were the worst racist people on earth because of the stuff we throw at each other. But we're buddies. And we can take it. And we think, I remember whenever we were in Salt Lake and people were arguing and yelling at each other and throwing out racist stuff, we were just laughing because we were like, that's really the argument and attack you're going to use is racist stuff. And the fact that that's a crime kills me. It really kills me. And you know who it's harming, actually? It's not harming really white people. Like, if you think about it, right? Like, if the whole point of this is to empower minorities and make them feel like they're on an even playing ground, which they are, but to make them feel like they are, you're just hurting them.
I agree.
Because that law extends to everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't just extend to white people.
Yeah.
And a good attorney will fight for that. So basically what you're saying is minorities are going to get mad at a white person. You're going to use white racist stuff to throw at them. The white guy's going to lawyer up and sue them and put them in jail. Like that's a real scenario that can happen. But you're not seeing that, I'd say, so much because I think it is an anti-majority policy with the hate speech. But that's what I see happening, and it's terrifying to think about that.
The other thing though too that kills me is it's like there's this narrative right now going on in the States that there's so much racism going on. There's all this stuff. So to kind of give some background, I'm Hispanic, and I live in a predominantly white state. Like there's not a lot of color in Utah.
There's just Mexicans.
There is,
yeah.
but I mean, but even then, they're in very small pockets. It's not a ton.
Yeah.
I would say it's 90% white.
Yeah.
And then that last 10% is kind of a good mix of like a little bit of everything.
There's not really any black people here though.
No, there's really not.
Which is interesting.
It is, but like the point being.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, the point being is, I've never been denied any opportunities because of my ethnicity or my skin tone. I've never, been attacked. I mean, I've had like in moments of anger, like in road rage incidents or something, and it, like I said, like in a moment of anger, I've had people like call me, like all kinds of stuff in regards to my race. But it's like, if that's really something that you're just like, I can't move on with my life, like that's kind of a you issue, and that has nothing to do with society. Like,
right.
You need to kind of toughen up a bit and move on. Like, yes, someone said something you don't like. Okay, like that doesn't constitute jail time. Like, what?
Well, it's like, heck? Are you gonna put people in jail for yo mama jokes?
Like, well, I mean, that's the scary thing, is because that's totally where it's headed. And next thing you know, you can't breathe in certain ways because that might offend someone, or that might not be culturally appropriate, or something ridiculous. But no, it's just crazy to me. And just again, going back, it's this what I believe is a false narrative of racism and homophobia and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, and the reality is everybody's gonna have a different opinion. Everybody. Right. There's no,
even you and I, we disagree on very key issues.
Exactly. Whereas like with myself, I'm a little more socially liberal. But like economically, I'm definitely more conservative. I definitely believe, in the free market society, things like that. But I'm not like anti-welfare. I think it needs to be reformed, but I'm not against the idea of it. But yeah, no, I agree. But it's just, I just think that this false narrative that's being presented has a lot to do with it. And I think you get these little areas of echo chambers where you have a really, you have a high majority of like an ultra left or ultra right group. And it's just this echo chamber that bounces off each other, and they start riling each other up, and it causes issues. And so it causes for them to do something, and someone else from a different, political spectrum or side is going to say or do something in retaliation, and it just pops off. A lot of stuff goes down, and then they go, oh, look, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about, racism, or whatever it is. And it's not true, because I would say most of your Americans, especially now, I mean, people that have been born from like, I would say like the 80s going forward haven't really seen like Jim Crow. You never saw like segregated bathrooms or anything like that. So it's like, that's not really like, unless your family, and I find this like, I think this is such a small minority of people, is like, if you grew up in a family that was like, blacks are evil, Mexicans are evil. Okay, and that's gonna happen, and that happens anywhere.
Well, everyone thinks there's a Richard Spencer around the corner.
Yeah, like it's like, no, and like I said, I live, and if anything, like people in like my situation where I live in a predominantly white area, you would see that. I've never had any
like
issues.
Everyone thinks you're gonna go to the 7-Eleven, and he's like, all right, that's 2 sodas, a bag of chips. That's gonna be 3. Oh. You're Hispanic? I'm sorry, you're not welcome here. It's like, that's never happened.
Actually, sorry, sir, we can't serve your kind.
Right, exactly. Well, and it's funny because it's not even on the other spectrum, too. Like, here's how I know that there isn't any racism. Because you and I can both go to Olive Garden and Beto's.
It's true. Well,
like you know, like there's not any. You can't go anywhere that I can't. I can't go anywhere that you can't. And there's no businesses that are saying, sorry, we don't serve your kind here. It's like what was that scene in Star Wars 4 where he's like, we don't serve your people here.
Oh yeah.
It's like that doesn't happen. And to think that it does happen is shameful. And when it does happen, let the free market figure it out. That's how, like, don't make policy. Like, if there's a guy that owns a bed and breakfast and he doesn't serve black people, let the free market dictate it. He'll lose so many black customers. He'll, like, I'll go out of business. People will boycott it.
Well, not even that, but it's just, like, even just your normal everyday citizens are like, yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'm not going to go there.
Right. And that's the beauty of, that is freedom of speech. Yeah. It's expressing your voice. It's expressing it with your dollar. It's expressing it with where you go. Because, you know, he needs customers. And if he's going to segregate an entire group for skin color, he's going to lose out on a lot of business.
It's true.
And what I think is interesting is we saw the anti of that. So with the whole, when people were making cakes and the gay couples were finding these predominantly Christian cake bakers and wedding people and were... Like, let's be honest here. They were baiting and trapping them for a situation where they were like, we don't feel comfortable with this because of our religious beliefs. And the state was like, nope, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, do I agree with them saying, no, I don't want to do this? No, personally. But they have a right to. They have a right to say, I like, a business should just have the right to refuse service. Let the free market figure it out. Let them say, I don't want to do gay weddings. They'll lose the business. And then even straight people will be like, that's messed up. I don't like the fact that you're segregating against gays. I'm not going to support you. Like, talk with your dollar. Don't talk on Twitter. Yeah. Twitter doesn't solve anything.
Don't shut them down because they're going through a lawsuit. Shut them down because they're not getting any business.
Right.
You know?
And, man, it's frustrating and it's scary because... It's scary for me, and I'll tell you why it's scary for me. Is like, you know, I'm eventually going to have kids, right? And I think it's going to get worse. I hope it gets better, but logically, I think it's just going to get worse. My kids are going to more than likely be white, you know? Yeah. And every statistic and all the studies show that being Caucasian is slowly dwindling just because of the Hispanic population, which is, I mean, it's what you'd expect. I mean, people aren't... That's proving there's no racism. Yeah. People are interracial, marrying and having kids. Like, there's nothing more non-racist than a white guy marrying a black chick. It's like, there's no way. So, we're seeing that, you know, people are becoming more, I guess, having Hispanic parents, and that's a good thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm worried that if my kids are just white, that, you know, it'll be a problem. It'll get to the point where it's kind of like they just attack them on that point. Yeah. And when they become the minority, you're still going to have all of that compound hatred that was built up from right now. Yeah. So 20, 30 years from now, it's only going to get worse. And it terrifies me because the only way we can stop it is things like this podcast. It's going to be like-minded people from all backgrounds coming together and saying, no, this is wrong. Here's why it's wrong. We need to protect individualism and freedom. So, yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is scary just because, you know, like you said, like, I've definitely seen that, and you see that on, like, these ultra-leftist kind of, you know, echo chambers or forums where you know, it is this whole narrative of like, oh, you're white, you're evil, and things like that. You know, I've seen that for sure, even within the, you know, in these ultra left communities within the Hispanic community. It's ridiculous, this whole idea, you know. And what I find so ironic about this is this side, the group, the like these ultra leftists that are supposedly protecting and looking out for minorities and, you know, trying to protect them from the evil white man, are literally going against one of the greatest men who fought for that very idea, which is, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, who, if I remember correctly, said, you know, that he hopes for a day where a man will be judged not by the color of their skin, but the content of their heart. And that group of people who is supposedly all for that is literally looking at you and going, you're white, you have nothing good to say. You are a racist because you are white, and things like that. And so I just find that so ironic and so funny that this just like weirdly ultra violent and just ultra ridiculous like narrative was formed, And then, from that stems the idea of, oh, well, because you're white, you can't say this, this, or this, which again goes back to freedom of speech because it mutes out your opinions. Obviously, Josh, I know you're not racist, obviously being one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, just this idea that just because you are white, you automatically hate me or anyone that I associate with that is a minority. Mm-hmm. And now because I supposedly think that I'm going to outlaw that and basically outlaw you from even talking, whether it has anything to do with that or not, is so scary because eventually that trickles down to everybody, whether you're white, black, Asian, liberal, a conservative, whatever it may be, until it just becomes this giant just pit of no one can say anything and everything's illegal and we lose freedom entirely.
And I think it's also funny too that if you as a minority express this opinion publicly and basically say me being a minority has no effect on my ability to get a job, get an education, it's purely simply how I look and culture from the ethnicity. Mm-hmm. People accuse you of being like an Uncle Tom. Yeah. And it's like you can't win. You can't be a white guy saying, hey, there's no racism. You can't be a minority saying there's no racism because the other side that is looking for this straw man, this racist Richard Spencer majority. Yeah. And it's funny because it's like you think about all the rallies. There was one Tiki Torch rally. Did you look at the guys in that group? Yeah. They looked like the basement dwellers. Like they look like the kind of guys that like have had like a 10-year subscription to World of Warcraft and they never hopped off. It's like those weren't prominent men. Yeah. If you had the Koch brothers coming out and saying like, look, like we're actually like pro-white, this is what we believe. I mean, there's a problem. You could say, oh, okay, so Koch is ran by racists, but no one's doing that because it doesn't exist. And it's so funny. But luckily, I think Utah, I mean, it's slowly drifting there, but we haven't been hit heavy just because the Mormon bubble has kind of deflected a lot of these ideas out.
I would agree.
But, like, for example, when we were going to high school, I played in a band and our lead singer was a black guy. And we were a punk band. Yeah. It's like, okay, so, and I thought that, like, there was nothing weird about that. It was just, it was my buddy. And so it's cases like that prove that it's not real.
It's true.
It's not real.
And another easy way that I always look at it, how many rich and powerful minority people that are minorities are there? There's hundreds. I would say thousands of rich, very wealthy, powerful individuals. If
I'm not mistaken, I think white people are like number 7 or 8 on like the wealthy categories. Yeah. So it's like Lebanese Americans, Indian Americans. Even like true African immigrant Americans. Yeah. I mean, these people on average are making more money than white people. And it's funny because it's like, and I think that part of the reason why it's becoming more like this is look at the way our statistics are tracked. Yeah. They separate it based upon race. Which is, I mean, it's like a double-edged sword because part of you wants to look at the statistics to disprove racism, to show that everything's across the board. But at the same time, the facts are presented and then you're like, oh, so there's one little tribe, one little group that's doing this or causing this problem. And all that does is seed more hatred. Yeah. All it does is it gives, for example, with like crime rates, right? There's an unproportionally number of black males that are committing crimes in the United States. Mm-hmm. All that is ammunition for far-right extremists and for people that are like, they don't support interracial marriage and all that stuff. It just gives ammunition for them to be like, look, and this is, in context, is not what I believe, people that are listening. They'll say, black kids commit crime. Yeah. Less black kids, less crime. It's like, I see where you're pulling the statistic, but that's wrong. Because what you're looking at is more than just race. Yeah. You're looking at a demographic of people. Look at for example, look at the cities, right? Because if you're going to go with black, okay, where are they living? What kind of job do they have? What was their family situation? Because there's things that you need to examine outside of just race. Yeah. Because white people are majority, right? So we're going to be involved in everything. You're going to have white criminals, white rich people, white crazy people. I mean, because there's more of us, we're going to be involved in multiple activities, living different places. So there's going to be more data. and then black people, not as many, but then they're kind of in communities where, if I would say for like 40, 50 years, that's where their families have been. So you're going to see congregations of black people. And so if you see the crime, maybe it's a city thing. I don't think it's personally a race thing. I think it's a city thing, and I think it's honestly, I think it's a welfare thing.
Yeah.
I think that specifically when it go into black crime, it's in big cities. And big cities have bad crime no matter what race you're in.
Yeah.
So I think it's more than just the problem. So when they're seeing statistics that are pulling race as the main trump card, saying this is why, this is the explanation why, I think that's wrong. I think it just separates people. I like seeing people come together, and they have, I think, at key moments. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see the rise of, well, if things turn out good, I think we're going to see another Martin Luther King type character. I think we're going to see somebody that is a minority that gets their voice outspread and says, we need to call a spade a spade. We need to say that this is ridiculous and that we're on an equal playing ground. There's no rights that me as a white guy I get that you as a minority don't get. I would say it's even a little bit flipped.
I agree.
I mean, college advantages, employment.
I was just gonna say
balancing all that stuff.
Because I was just gonna say with like a good example of that is like college is a great example where there's a lot of programs for minorities that totally, absolutely do not qualify to go to college or at least go to a certain university that get accepted purely off the fact that they're a minority. A great example is me. So we have the University of Utah here, which is a really big, really big university, and it's a fairly hard school to get into. But what kills me is like for example, like with me in high school, I was a knucklehead up until about my senior year. You know, I basically was making stuff up for all of high school at the end of my junior year and like the first half of my senior year because I didn't care. I didn't mess around, you know. And so I had a lot of Fs. I failed a ton of classes, obviously, because I had to make a bunch of stuff up. I just was an idiot, you know, just wasn't paying attention and I was messing around. So it's like you're going to give, so you have like the person that's kind of like me, except he doesn't pull his head out of his butt, you know, and is still messing around even after high school, assuming he even graduates high school. And then all of a sudden he decides to, hey, I want to go to college. Okay, fills out the application, everything. And then on the flip side, you have like, let's say there's, some white kid who has, he's worked his butt off all the time and, he's got, 4.0 GPA when he graduates. He did a bunch of extracurricular stuff. So you're going to tell me that he's going to get denied going to that school because they need to make room for me when I shouldn't even be considered to go there? Like that's what kills me, is because I find that to be incredibly unfair. Because you shouldn't be looking at the color of your skin to allow someone to come in. You should just sit down and look at the resume and say, oh, okay, this kid has a 4.0. This kid has this and that, blah, blah, blah. And that way, because the issue with pandering to the lowest common denominator is you eventually have to bring everybody down to it to make it fair.
Right.
And so that's where you can get some serious problems. And look, and I don't think that schools shouldn't allow those people to come in, but I don't think it should be a race thing. I think there should be programs to help those people that maybe, did screw up or maybe did mess around in high school and didn't have good grades. Maybe some kind of program that can help anybody, to start to get going basically at a university, and to have like a transfer program that is literally designated to, okay, you're going to start here, but then we're going to get you to the U of U.
There is that.
Yeah, and so that's, I think that should be more along the lines. That way it gives an opportunity for those people that are willing to work for it, but it should not just be given to you because of your race.
Right.
The only so like obviously again as a minority, I'm very anti-affirmative action. I don't like it because I think it's kind of, if you sit down and look at it, I think it's kind of insulting to be like, hey, you're Mexican. I'm assuming right off the bat that you're going to be disadvantaged, that you're going to have this issue, and you're probably going to need help. It's like, I don't need your help to become successful.
Right.
Like, I don't need anybody. I can do it. And for those people that like need help, great. There's things to do that. But it should not be race-based. I think that's so ridiculous because with my stepdad, he's white, my mom's Hispanic, my stepdad's white. My stepdad has struggled since he's married my mom for so long, and they've had so many financial issues. It's like, okay, where's this white privilege I hear everybody talk about? And we always joke around, and my stepdad's like, hey, where's the application? I'd love to apply for it. And it's like, it's not real. It's this, again, it's this fake narrative that is being, shoved in everyone's face that this is that and, whatnot. But I think it's just so funny that that people, there's people out there that really believe that. And it's like, yeah, you know what? People can be born into different situations. I could be born into a very wealthy, rich family, whereas you could be born in a family you could be an orphan. You could, you could be born and your parents could die and you're an orphan and you have no upbringing. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the roles can be flipped. You can become the world's largest billionaire, and I could become some bum living in the street who's homeless.
Right.
And you've seen it happen. I mean, right. Like I said, you have these movie stars, these rappers, these musicians that start from nothing. They literally come from the lowest class ever to becoming billionaires, becoming very, very wealthy individuals with a lot of power. So just the fact that I can do that as a minority, I can come from nothing and become the most influential man, or even just become very, very wealthy, proves to me there's no racism.
Right.
Because there would be laws put in place to counter that. And there's not. There's not.
It's interfering with the free market, and it's interfering with people's right to have their thought.
Yeah.
It's because it's going back to, the title freedom of speech. It takes away the voice of those colleges. It takes away, for example, with you said the University of Utah saying, we want educated people. A good example of this, did you know there's a group of Asian students filing a lawsuit against, I think it's Yale.
Is that Harvard?
It's either Yale or Harvard. But basically, they were disproportionately being rejected. And they were like, I have perfect scores.
Yeah.
And so, because if you look at the demographics, Asian people score extremely well in mathematics and science. So all of the STEM stuff, they score very, very high in. And I think it's a cultural thing, if I had to point to a reason, but without going down that wormhole. So they're applying to Ivy League institutions. And these institutions, affirmative action, are saying, actually, we got to let, everybody in, kind of a thing. Lower score minorities. So, sorry, but Asians are becoming the new white privilege. And it's like, who are you going to attack next? So you've attacked white people, right? You've neutered white people. Yeah. They already have. Let's be honest. I mean, look, how many white people do you know on Twitter, and especially in person, that are like, well, I know from my white person, my position of authority and my white privilege. Before I state my opinion, let me give my catalysts of why my opinion could be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've neutered us. Yeah. And it's like, they haven't neutered me. I'm saying the collective. White people have kind of just hunkered down and just like, oh no,
I'm not gonna say
anything because I don't want to be the racist.
Yeah, I don't want to offend anybody.
So,
I'm so sorry.
It's like, you're gonna attack Asians next. Okay, so you've attacked Asians. Who's next? What other races are there to go after? You're gonna go after Latinos next? Yeah. Because 20, 30 years from now, there's likely that they're gonna be on par with white people population wise.
Yeah.
So your black's gonna attack Latinos. Well, you got Mexican privilege.
Yeah, it's
native privilage. It's like,
there's
ridiculous. No privilege. There's no privilege.
It's stupid, It's and the thing that I just find so laughable about it again is just this idea. Well, and the funny thing though about that is it's like they're trying to supposedly get rid of stereotypes, but you're solidifying them by doing this. It's like, what are you doing?
I know.
It's like, no.
Be creative. Think outside the box. But you're this.
You're Hispanic. Oh, so you come from a single parent household who's probably lives under the poverty line.
Yeah.
It's like,
did your parents illegally move here?
Are your parents illegal? So you probably need help. You're not getting assistance. Like, what? No, my family's been here for 10 generations. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's just, and again, it kind of goes back to that. But I think and the biggest thing that I find with all these stats that people try to pull up about racism and about things like this, a lot of that, and this is being 100% honest, again, as a minority, a lot of that is stereotypes. And the reality is there's stereotypes for a reason.
Yes.
If you do not like your stereotype, change it. Mm-hmm. Do something with your life. Don't be a loser and don't be sitting at home fighting people on Twitter. Go out, get educated, get a good paying job, retire with $1 million in your bank account. Do something.
Right.
That's how you break the stereotype. Don't sit, don't sit in the freaking, don't sit in the neighborhood that you grew up in and do nothing with your life and sit there and go, oh, these white people are messing it up. It's like, what did you do to change your life? You did nothing.
Yeah.
You sat around and cried about it.
It's not like a white guy looked at their job application and was like, all right, I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah.
Because of your skin color, you're not qualified for this job, so go back to the crap hole you came from. It's like, that's not happening.
Well, and
It's
like
not
a
happening.
great example that I always like to use in that argument is with my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, came to America illegally, like 100%. He came here illegally, and when he came here, my grandfather had nothing. He was completely straight up.
Do you know what year, roughly, just for people listening?
I'd have to look it up. I'm not 100% sure, but he's an old man. He's 90, I believe 92 or something like that. So I mean, he's an older guy. Mm-hmm. He came here when he was really young. So okay. he was probably just barely around like 18, if not a little bit older.
Okay.
When he came over here, but he came over here completely homeless. And my grandmother, who was still in Mexico, was down there. And so he came up here homeless, nothing to his name. Worked. He hustled. My grandfather never looked for a handout. That's just not how he was raised. Mm-hmm. He never looked for a handout. He always worked to get what he wanted. And as time went on, and, he eventually brought my grandmother up. They became citizens legally. And after, I guess, they just worked their whole life. Now he owns his own property, has his cute little house. He has his family with him. His wife's still with him. He's achieved the American dream. Mm-hmm. He came from nothing and now owns property. He owns his own business. He owns his own little landscaping business, and all this stuff. And he not once, begged for money. He not once lived off the system. He didn't use welfare of any kind. He came here and he worked and he made something of himself, whereas like our stereotype I find is that, we generally stay low labor workers. We're not very smart. We're not very educated, and things like that.
Like the collective being Hispanics?
Yeah, like Hispanics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, predominantly Mexicans because that's what I am. Mm-hmm. Is that, we're low wage workers. We do, the menial tasks.
People must not be looking into labor because it pays pretty good.
I know. Well, I agree, but it's just this stupid stereotype that is there and exists, and it's like my grandpa came from nothing. He came here illegally, which is also another stereotype. He came here illegally, but he came with the right intention. He knew why he wanted to be here. He saw what America had to offer, and came here and took advantage of that, and said, "Hey." And again, not once did he leech off the system. Not once did he use a welfare system. Not once did he cash a welfare check. Mm-hmm. He worked from literally nothing to what he has now. And he's not wealthy by any means. He's not rich, but he has his own piece of heaven. He's made it in his eyes. He's made it. He's a U.S. citizen who owns property and his business. He's made it.
Well, another great example, I guess you could say, success story, is Leslie's mom.
Not true.
Who came here illegally.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I've talked to her, and when she said that she came here, she thought it was like a game. Like, because she was with her boyfriend at the time, who was Leslie's father, and they just came up here because they were just like, oh, it's just a thing we can do. They didn't realize the risks and, all the stuff. But she came up here and actually did something. She actually worked, got into the business. Her husband, Leslie's father, ended up working. And now she owns multiple homes. She lives off of renting her homes. She doesn't have to work.
Yeah.
She could sit around all day if she wanted to. She doesn't. She still hustles and has her jobs. But, she achieved it, I guess you could say, the American dream. Yeah. Now, and I'm not using this story to be pro-legal immigration. I don't think the rare stories should dictate the policy of illegal immigration is not good.
No, I agree.
I agree that illegal immigration is not good. But it's interesting when you see these success stories from people that literally came from nothing and they make it. That proves racism isn't real.
Well, not only that, but it breaks the stereotype. Those people,
100%.
They did something. They didn't just sit around and go, oh, I can't do anything because white people hold me down. Like, no one's holding you down other than yourself and your lack of motivation. Man. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody holds you down other than yourself. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who you came from. It doesn't matter where you currently are. None of that matters. Ultimately, none of that matters because someone has made it from where you're at. That's the truth. someone's done it. So if someone's done it, it is possible. And is it going to be hard? Absolutely. Being successful is never easy. It's never easy. Otherwise, everyone would do it. And it's something that I think that's the other thing is people just don't want to work for. But again, if you truly want to shatter the stereotype of your people, create an environment around you that is all in regards to, doing that very thing. Look, guys, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna grow together. We're gonna we're gonna bring each other up, and we're gonna break this stereotype. We're gonna break the fact that you know what, we're poor right now, but we're gonna work our freaking butts off at whatever cost that means, and we're gonna make it, and we're gonna get out of this situation, and we're gonna do something with our lives, and we're gonna not have to worry about this. Because that's the reality. That's just the reality, whether people want to agree with that or not. And the people generally that don't agree with that are the people that are never going to do anything. And those are the ones that are going to be sitting at home. Their life hasn't changed for over 20 years. That are crying about, oh, this person's holding me down. This person's, doing this. Someone's always doing something to them. Whereas they're just refusing to admit that it's not, that it's them that's holding them back, So if you want to break your stereotype, do something about it. Don't just sit and cry about it.
And make your voice heard.
Yeah, that's a big one too. We live in an age where you can say anything to anyone. You can tweet the president.
You can't. I know, isn't that
tweet
crazy?
The president. So it's like, make your voice heard. You have a voice, whether you're homeless or whether you have a multi-million-dollar home. You have a voice as an individual. And exercising that is so vital to the way our society runs.
Like voting.
Yeah.
Please, everybody listening, look at who your local representatives are. It's very important.
Vote.
Please vote. Please vote. Even if you don't know every single person on the ballot, just vote.
Inform yourself as much as possible.
Yes.
Be educated as much as you can. I know for those of you that work 40 plus hours a week, it can be hard. You come home, the last thing you want to read about or see
is policy.
Is politics, But
unless
it's
you're
important.
like us, and that's all we do is we're old men. We just debate.
It's true. But even if that's the case, you come home from a hard day and you don't want to hear about freaking Trump. You don't want to hear about Nancy Pelosi. You don't want to hear about anybody. You just want to be like, look, I want to eat my dinner and not do it.
I don't even think local politics is that bad. Like
10 minutes.
I'm saying, get to know your city council, get to know your mayor, because it's like what we said. Local laws matter. Vote on your state stuff. Control your country. If your state is your country, control your country.
That's your home front, and you should always be aware. Right. If nothing else, even if you're not going to vote, which I'm strongly against, but if you decide for whatever reason you're not going to vote, at least know what's going on in your local community. At least know what changes are happening, what taxes, they're trying to implement in your community. So that way, if something comes up that you don't like, again, you can have a voice. All it takes is you to go to the city hall and express, some displeasure about a policy or something that they, or some law that they're passing. That's it. So it's just so important, and I really hope that you guys, do get involved, whether that's just informing yourself or keeping yourselves informed to actually voting. Obviously, I hope that it's you voting, but if for whatever reason you just decide not to, all I ask is you guys be informed, because an uninformed nation is a vulnerable nation. So
that's a T-shirt.
That is a T-shirt.
That'll be the nation is a
freedom of speech
nation.
Merch coming soon.
Oh, dude, we should. That'd actually be a great way. Also too, because we're getting close to the hour mark, so I want to wrap it a couple things up here. We're going to try our best to keep this non-advertising, non-paywall. But at the same time, with the amount of effort and stuff that we're putting into it, it'd be nice to get some kickback because, I invested money up front for equipment and software and everything else, right? So we're not going to ever put this behind like a paywall. But if you want, please follow us on Twitter. I have a Facebook page coming soon, but I'm personally not a big fan of Facebook, so I just haven't touched it. But yeah, follow us on Twitter. It's at podcast_FOS for freedom of speech. Again, that's at podcast_FOS. We always tweet a link to the video. For right now, we're hosting on YouTube. As soon as it costs quite a bit of money, but as soon as we have some revenue, because I think that'd be a good idea to do like merchandise and T-shirts. something you can wear and so that you support the show, all that good stuff. Very soon I'm gonna move it over to like Spotify and iTunes, but it's expensive to do that. So right now everything's hosted on YouTube. But I guess for a call to action is, please, I mean, as much as you can, try to be informed. It's like what Alec was saying. I know that sometimes the last thing you want to do when you're coming home from your job is to look at the news. I mean, especially with how depressing it is, because everything is covered instantly.
It's hard.
It takes a toll. But stay informed locally. Look at what local laws are happening. Look at what local things are going on. And small stuff. Go to I wouldn't even call it this much, but go to like a rally. Go to something. Go to your city council meeting. And honestly, if you want to have a good laugh, follow Donald Trump on Twitter. You don't even have to like him. Like, there's a lot of things he does that I'm just like, why? Like, how could a sane person do and say this? But his Twitter is entertaining. But, I mean, try to be informed, because it actually does make an impact. It really does. So that's my number one, I guess, counter argument is that every time people say, well, how could you be interested in politics? It doesn't affect you. I'm like, what are you talking about? It does affect me. It's the number one thing that affects me is policy.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's kind of like the goal with this show, is to save you the time and energy. If you don't want to look at the policy, Alec and I will.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. So
yeah, we enjoy it. And as we grow and as the community grows, obviously, we want to start taking suggestions from you guys on things that you want to hear about, or particular things that you find interesting, or something that maybe you're not sure of. We would love to sit down with you guys, and kind of look at it with you and break it down to the best of our ability. Again, just obviously feedback is always welcome. We love to hear from you guys. Just, like we said, keep informed, be active.
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, I don't want to, beat a dead horse, but, message us. Let us know what you're thinking. Reviews, comment on the YouTube video. Even if you hate it, if you think what we're doing is ridiculous.
If you think what we're doing and what we're saying is wrong and completely inaccurate, which I'm sure some of it is, let us know.
Yeah, just anything. Express your voice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, goes all back to the same thing. Express your feelings, and
use your First Amendment rights.
Exercise your freedom of speech. And then if you do enjoy it, or if it's something you find interesting, please spread the word. Like I said, we'd like this to grow, and we want it to be something that we're able to keep doing, and we'll keep doing it regardless. But it's always nice to be able to have that support from you guys. So please, if you like it, if you don't like it, spread the word.
Yeah, just
have people listen to us. If not, that's cool.
We're just two guys that have been thinking about doing something like this for a long time. Kind of going back to what I said like in the first little bit. I think there's people like us out there that feel alone, that are not in these echo chamber communities, that want to see some logic, and especially from young people. I'm sure for those of you listening who are not millennials or whatever our generation is, it's confused. I'm sure there's some of you that are like, all young people are the reason why there are these echo chambers and stuff. There's people like us out there that truly just think it's ridiculous, and we're trying to stay on the path of logic. So, we just want to make our voices out there and make you not feel so alone.
Yeah, we're gonna try and be again as fair as we can to both sides and everything in between. And like you said, we're never gonna really take a position against one side or the other. Me and Josh both collectively are kind of against both sides per se, but not really. Like, we think both sides present good issues, and so. Right. I would say we're pretty fair, but I mean, definitely some of our biases will definitely come out, and that's to be expected. But
right, because it's beliefs.
Yeah,
you can't expect us to hold back beliefs.
Exactly. But. So I mean, you'll hear, like I said, as we go forward, you'll definitely get to know us a little bit more and hear our opinions and what we think and what we don't like and like. But yeah, so give us a follow. We'll keep you guys notified and updated as much as possible. And like I said, we'd like to keep this going. So if it's something you enjoy, please do what you can to kind of help spread the word and get us going.
Mm-hmm. And then one last thing, because we're about a minute out. I'm going to plug the Twitter one more time and then let you guys know how to get in touch with us again. So again, at podcast_FOS. Give us a follow, like the video, comment on the YouTube video, share it with as many people as you can. We want to get our voices heard as much as we can. So, and again, we're never going to charge for this. I'm going to try my best to avoid like paywall ads or anything like that.
We'll do everything we can to avoid that because, again, we want this to be just like everything, free information and something that you can just hop in and listen to for free. It's not something you have to pay for. So
right,
that will never be our intention nor our goal. So,
all right. Well, we did it, man.
I think that's it. That's a wrap. First episode.
Alrighty. Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a good one.